Hi, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to tune in with us for another episode of our show. Tonight, we have Drew Davenport. This is episode 24 of the Game Changers, and we are having so much fun getting to know the community and making them say their deepest secrets. Wendy and I are really blessed. The Game Changers are more than a show for us, it has become our family. Thank you, Evan, Iggy, JC, and the TSA crew for giving us this platform to connect with wonderful individuals through the community. We're learning so much about the personalities of each one of our we host, and they are taking us to their home, sharing with us their personal experiences with fantasy football and life itself. Before I introduce you tonight to our guest, my co-host and sister Wendy went to the NFL Combine this past week. While I was trying to find her and take her picture on TV, she was experiencing all this blood rush and excitement with the athletes, while some of them were trying to break some records, like Xavier Worthy. Wendy, tell me more about the feeling. How was it out there?
Well, good evening, everyone. I'll tell you what, I'm still recovering. It's a lot. Okay, it's a lot, especially that's nothing I've ever done before. But I was super prepared because of my community around me. Kelly in Phoenix, Kelly Singh, Lifesaver, like cherry flavored Lifesaver. That's the best one you can get is the cherry, and that's her. I had Dustin. I had a couple other guys, David and Tristan. They were all from Dynasty Nerds, and they kind of took me under their wing and walked me around. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know things that were going on, but it was the best experience. I know there's things I could have done differently, but I do what I do. I'm not a stats person. I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, well, this guy did that. I had other team members that were doing that. I was there to kind of show like, hey, this is what I didn't know what the combine was about. So I kind of tried to show everybody that. And, we'll go into it later, but I had an absolute blast. I'm actually going to be on, Fantasy and Frames tomorrow night. Stacy Perez asked me to come on
Yes,
and kind of discuss that. So I'm
awesome.
really looking forward to it. So let's get it
You
rolling.
heard
Thanks,
it first
Carla.
here in the Game Changer.
That's right. That's right.
That's awesome, Wendy. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. We appreciate it. Hi, Bob. So let's introduce um our Drew for tonight. So Drew, the first time we met. It was at the expo. It was a couple years ago. Honestly, it was my first year going to the expo. Even though we have met, we never had the chance to sit and talk, and I never learned a lot about the person you are. But I am your personal photographer for the expo, just to say that. You have an auction brief podcast for auction drafts with high level guests and legal breakdowns. You have a Patreon network as well called Fantasy Football Lawyer. You are a criminal defense attorney and practice law for 23 years, back to back champion for the King Classic Auction League in 2020 and 21, and so much more. Drew, we cannot wait to learn more about you tonight and your journey. How are you? And welcome to the show.
Well, that's a heck of an intro. Now, you said something earlier about people's deepest secrets. That was not in the contract. Um,
I warned you. I
I
told you in a.
negotiated red M&Ms only and no secrets. And unfortunately, all the M&Ms showed up. Anyway, all these
You
people
didn't
showing up
have
in the
to, though.
comments is awesome. Bob, Gina, JC, like all these. So happy to have all those people here. Thank you for having me. This should be fun.
Thank you for being with us.
Drew, where are you from? I know. Are you from Ohio? Is that where you're from? Okay, I thought
I'm
so.
originally
So,
from Ohio. Yes, I went to Indiana, so I consider myself a Hoosier. But I ended up back in Dayton. All my family's here in Dayton.
okay. Well, I did see you at the combine. Well, I saw a picture of you at the combine. I never saw you at the combine. You said you just went for one day.
Yeah. So my buddy Chris Allen, who actually lives in Dayton as well, um, him and I play a lot of poker together in Dayton, and we just kind of hang out around here. But then he goes to the combine every year. And I was saying this before we came on the air, but I go for the football guys retreat in Vegas in January. And it's really hard for me to say 4 weeks later to my wife, "Hey, I'll see you again. Enjoy the 9 and 7-year-old by yourself. I'll be in Indy living it up." So I've been just kind of reluctant. Well, Chris bugged me enough this year, and he said, "Just come over and hang out." So I drove over on Saturday afternoon. We were hanging out in a couple of the bars in downtown Indy. And I'll tell you what, it's amazing because Dayton isn't like this. And I know there are a lot of cool downtown areas, but Dayton's just not like that. And there was just so much foot traffic downtown in Indy, and everybody's just walking around to different bars, having a good time. We were at some place called the Prime Bar. I tell you what, the number of NFL personalities in there was unbelievable. Jerry Jones and Steve Smith and Ian Rappaport and um, all that stuff is just. I was starstruck, so you know me. I was chasing the. Is he going
If
to go to the
you were
bathroom?
starstruck, you were starstruck.
Hey,
So,
man,
so
Steve
wait,
Smith and Jerry Jones. It was awesome. It was very cool.
so wait, you didn't actually go to Lucas Oil?
No, no.
Okay.
So I was like acting as though I was at the combine, but I couldn't get over there early enough in the day. I actually had a poker tournament at 10:15 that morning. I couldn't get over there until like the evening, and then I waited on Chris and them to have do what they were going to do during the day. I didn't even get over there till like 7 o'clock at night, but we ended up having a great dinner at St. Elmo's, and I will be going back to St. Elmo's Steakhouse. That place was unbelievable.
Yep. And the thing I do want to say is the city of Indianapolis and the Indianapolis Colts are they are amazing for that combine. The way that everything is set up and everyone is so helpful. Like it was great. It really was. But I do have to mention, I told you before the show that I was a little angry with you. Even though we've only met tonight, I'm still angry at you because I'm going through my phone and I'm scrolling and hey, there's Drew. I'm like, oh, I know Drew. And you had a picture with Mike McDaniel. Okay, that's my coach. That is my look. I've got the Dolphins ring to prove it. Okay, I'm a freaking Dolphins fan, and there you are with. I'm like son of a, and I'm already back in Fishers, Indiana, staying with my friends. Which that was great too. Really, Mike McDaniel?
Well, I don't want to. Here's the thing. I'm outing myself here as the only guy really in the bar who was impressed with all these people. Everybody else was like standing around like, I've got my martini and it's not that cool. But I'm like, there's Jerry Jones. There's Bo Nix. Like Bo Nix was 3 feet behind me having
Oh, that's
drinks.
cool.
And then, I'm seeing all these people. I'm like, there's that guy. There's that guy. So then partway through the night, the guys I'm with, I'm hanging out with Chris Allen and Dalton Cates and Connor Allen, a couple of those guys. And they found out that I was this guy. So then every time somebody walked by, they're like, there's that person. Like we're going to trigger Drew here. So I didn't even see Mike McDaniel. He went by one way apparently, but he's super distinctive because he's short, he's got the glasses, and he's wearing a hoodie like he always is. So it's like if you had to draw a picture, like what's Mike McDaniel going to look like? There he is with this hoodie. So and then he went like he was going back towards the bathroom, and again, I'm not too proud. I start to go back there, like I'm gonna just say hi to him. I'm not gonna bother him, but I'm gonna say, well, then he turned around and went back the other way towards the exit, and I cut him off at the exit and said, excuse me, can I get a picture? He was super cool, very nice, but I was literally the only person there who cared that it was Mike McDaniel. I can't understand why. Either they were feeling like, hey, I'm not going to bother this guy, which is probably the nice thing to do, or they were just like too cool, like, yeah, there's a ton of NFL people here. But I thought it was awesome. It was a once in a lifetime for me. So
It was a great picture,
I
and
took
I'll
it.
tell you what, if I would have been there, I would have clotheslined you and got you out of the way because I would have taken that picture with Mike
Taking the
McDaniel.
picture for you. I would have taken it for you.
That was so cool, though. I was like, "Oh my god!" It actually made me so excited for you. That was great.
Next time,
He
take
did an amazing.
Wendy's like face and say, "This is for Wendy." Put her face.
I'll take
True.
whatever I can get.
Now, do you know my friend Wendy? So she would like to just slide into her DMs, say hi.
Definitely. Drew, what came first, law or fantasy football?
When I saw you ask me this earlier, it was really funny to me because the answer is neither. I started playing fantasy football in law school, which is kind of funny to me. I met a guy who was a former sports reporter up in Cleveland, and he had left, the low. I think he was a producer actually at one point, making like 22 grand a year, and he was just like, I can't do this. He goes back to law school. He ends up becoming one of my best friends. Well, he was into it, and I had no idea what it was. So the first year I got into it was one of those salary cap things where you have to build a team under the cap, and then if your guys did well that week, their price went up, and then so you had a bigger cap, and then so it was like this game where you switched out commodities that were going up and down. So that was my introduction to it, and I loved it so much that the following year my buddy got me in his home league, and it was an auction. So I was introduced to fantasy football two really weird ways. Most people don't do it that way, but yeah. And so that was my first year of law school. So they were both right there. If you have to ask which one I like more, that's a really easy one. It's fantasy football. But yeah, they were simultaneous. They happened at the same time.
That's amazing.
Oh, hey, Cindy's in the house there. Cindy Q. Drew, listen to this. I helped run a fantasy football tournament called Battle of the Sexes, and it was our first year. It was men against women. We raised over $5,000 for breast cancer research and prostate research, and a woman kicked ass and won it this year, and it's Cindy Q. So not only did she win it, I'm at the combine, and I knew she was coming, but I hadn't heard from her or anything like that. And I'm walking around taking pictures with all the big helmets because I had to do that. And all of a sudden, somebody grabs my arm, and it's Cindy. So I mean, because that's what I love about this community. It's like she knew who I was because we had seen each other in the Women of Fantasy Football Zooms and stuff. But for her to like reach out and grab my arm, I was like, oh my God, she's here. So she made the trek, and it was really nice. We took some photo ops and stuff like that.
I think that maybe my invitation to your league got lost like in the mail or went to my spam folder or something.
Oh, you were too cool.
Right.
You know what? You're getting in it this year. You don't have a choice. So I'm going to make you.
I'm never too cool for anything. Hit me up. I would love to be in it.
Well, that was you heard it here, everyone. You heard it here.
Talking about women. So Friday is International Women's Day. In her famous quote, Margaret Thatcher boldly proclaimed, "If you want something said, ask a man. If you want something done, ask a woman." So my question for you, Drew, for that. And I read on your Twitter page one day a poem you shared, "Be a lady," they said.
Mm-hmm.
I had to stop and think for a while. If only everyone would feel the same way about women. For International Women's Day, what do you want to say to women in your life? What made you share that poem, and what message are you trying to give to your community?
Yeah, that's a great question. I like being able to talk about this here because I don't spend a lot of time on that stuff on my Twitter account. If you're friends with me on Facebook or whatever, you're going to see me. You're probably going to get sick of me running my mouth. But on Twitter, I just, I'm there for fantasy football, and that's what I talk about. But I love this topic because when I got into college, my major was in philosophy, but I did a lot of philosophy of feminist studies with Beauvoir and some of that. It sort of opened my mind up. And what's interesting is that's been so long ago. I can't believe how old I am. That's 28 years ago. And you think that once you read something like that, like, oh, I've got it all figured out. This is all, I know it all. And then you read something else and you're like, maybe I don't know it all. And the more you read, the more you realize, I just don't know shit. And so, excuse me, I don't know anything. So I love the evolution of me specifically over the last 5 or 6 years. And I know that's kind of weird because, well, I was introduced to this stuff 28 years ago. So why just the last 5 or 6 years? I really think that Doug, I love Doug. I sat next to Doug the first year in the Kings
I love him
Classic,
too.
and we became, yeah, I know you do. Yes. And we became friends right away because Doug and I give each other shit. I love it. So anyway, so back to the point, which is that I know this feels like a long answer. I'm sorry, but the reason
No,
I'm saying that is it really, in the last 5 or 6 years, I really understood what I didn't know. And one of the things that men don't do well is just shut up and listen and maybe learn something. And it finally sunk in, like, hey, you're not the star of the show a few years ago, and just listen, and you just learn so much more when you listen. And when I read the poem that you're talking about, that somebody
yes.
had said, it just blew me away because I really felt like, okay, I know all of these things, like intuitively, I get all of these things that are in this poem. But when you see them all put together and you just read this long thing about what it means to be a lady according to society and whatnot, it just blew me away. I was like, wow, I've never seen somebody put all that together right there. And it just knocked me on my ass. Like, okay, you think you know something and you just don't, and you just got to keep evolving. So this goes back to 2016 when Hillary lost the election, and I had a young daughter. I had a daughter who was 4 months old, and I just had this vision of, like holding her up in front of the TV, like Hillary just won. The final glass ceiling has been broken. What a world for my daughter to be 4 months old, and and I could experience all this with her. And then it didn't happen, and it really just hit me hard. Like, still so much to do, and you don't realize all that stuff until you start just kind of going down the path, and then it all just. I feel like it all kind of like fell apart around me 4 or 5 years ago. And so I just keep trying to learn and just keep trying to listen, even though this answer was 30 minutes long. I do try to listen. So
No,
that's
thank
It's
you.
perfect.
Yeah,
It's perfect.
it is perfect. We appreciate that. I appreciate your honesty, Drew. Thank you so much for telling us that.
you got me to put one of those dark secrets out there already.
See?
And we're only what we're like 20 minutes in, and we got you already.
You got me already. Got me already.
Thank you, Bob. Yeah.
Well,
So
I've been trying to figure out, because I'm terrible at this, like this auction draft thing. You're like a pro. You're the guru, right?
That's what they tell me.
Good.
Well, so the auction stuff, I come by it honestly. Like I said, my first ever fantasy league that wasn't a salary cap, kind of pick and choose type of thing, was an auction league, and I just I gravitated towards it. And I tell everybody the same thing. As soon as you have that first bargain, you're hooked forever. And I distinctly remember drafting David Boston for almost no money. It's like $5 or $8 or something. And then that was the only year that he had that good year. Remember, I don't know if you guys are aware of David Boston back then, but he became a Miami Dolphin at one point. But yeah, he ended up having like 1,500 yards, 8 touchdowns or something like that. And I got him for like $6 or $8, and then I was hooked. I was like, oh, this is the way to do it. If you can just always get these deals and get these, of course it's not that easy. But so when I broke into the space, it was for the football guys to do that kind of stuff. And I realized, okay, there's a real niche here. There's a lot of people that love this format, and there's just no content out there. There just isn't. And so I think I just became the de facto guru. I don't know if that's because of expertise. It was more really like just filling a vacuum. But I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to fill that vacuum.
I'm scared that I need another type of tournament or leagues, or like I need a hole in the head. Okay. I don't need that, but it sounds so interesting. And it seems like everyone has so much fun. I remember popping my head in the room at the expo, and I'm like, it's intense. I mean, it's intense. And I'm like, I don't know if I could handle it or not, but I want to try it.
It's intense. And well, Gina's in the chat here. Gina knows I forced her to do a just a mock auction last year, and I said, just treat it like you're going to do it for real, and it's not going to be a just a mock. And she, she found out how intoxicating it can be, because she wanted to get. I'm on Ross St. Brown. What's Doug doing over here?
I don't know. He's drinking. Just ignore him.
But yeah, like doing them, and like Jameson's saying here in the chat, doing them live is a completely different thing. Look, if I had to do an auction or a snake and it was online, obviously I'm still picking auction. It's just not as fun as it is live, because like you picked up when you looked into the room, it is intense and there is a lot going on all at once. And that's what I love about it. It's your ability to assimilate the most information possible into actionable vectors that you should take your draft. And that is just exciting to me. It's like whoever can assimilate that information the best and move forward with their plan of action the best is going to be the winner of the draft. And that's not about like, hey, I drew pick number 2 and I got these 2 guys. Like I just think the difference in those 2 styles is wild. So I love it.
That's awesome.
Wow.
Someone was saying that you're trying to say your secrets. They're going and deleting everything in the chat rooms.
You know who that is? That's Brian Drake right there.
What's your
nice.
Now, Drake and I have our chat, and we do say a lot of stuff. We're not mean, but we're honest with each other. There's certain accounts that go out there and they kind of just stir things up, and they're kind of jerky or whatever. And we're like, what is this dude doing? Or what is that dude doing? It's nothing terrible. But Drake likes to go out there and say stuff like that because he loves to stir the public pot. Like, what are we and Drew talking about? It's really not that scandalous.
No, I need pictures before the deletion. I need some pictures before the deletion, Drew.
No. Secrets. I haven't had enough of these yet. So I'm sorry. We're going to go down the straight path.
We're going to give you another one right now. So maybe we'll wait like 10 more minutes.
Yeah, we only have another half hour, Drew. Drink quick.
I know. I got a couple off screen here, but
oh my God. Talking about that and about, some fun at the expo. So I'm gonna share a story that I saw. And I want to ask you why I wasn't included in it.
Well, so you're talking about the minivan incident.
I saw your car being filled with men. Like really,
like a clown car?
Being filled, like really filled up with men. Maybe like 20 or more. I don't know how many men you put in that car.
So
what happened?
Okay, so yes,
was I not being invited.
next year you're in. Well, here's the thing. It really happened quite organically. I think we ended up counting, we had 11 or 12, but so I've got my minivan, which I never thought I'd own a minivan, but it's amazing. You can put down the 2 back seats. It's got 4 captain's chairs, and you can put down the 2 back, and the back of it's huge. But I run the poker tournament on Friday. I have to bring my poker table, and then I have 4 totes full of prizes, chips, cards, like all that stuff that I need for the tournament. So I can't even bring my car. I just have a little 4-door Accord. So yeah, JC was there. He was part of the minivan crew. But yeah. So we go out to Chris Allen's house, the same Chris Allen from the Combine. He always gets an Airbnb, and he's got a poker table that he brings with him. And it was like a ton of people out there. And I said, well, hey guys, I want to go out there and play poker. Who wants to come with me? Well, it's the last night. It's Saturday night. And I hadn't hung out a lot with Iggy that weekend. I hadn't spent a lot of time with Gary Davenport. Like, these are all guys I really want to hang out with, but you know how it is. I've said this analogy before, and it still holds true. It's like a wedding. It's like, you're never going to get to spend the time you want to with every person there. You just have to like hit and run. So I was like, all right, guys, everybody pile in. We're all going to hang out. It's the last It's Jameson, you're right. Nobody listens when I talk at the poker tournament. Anyway, so the last night I'm like, hey, everybody, let's go. We're going. So we had plenty of seats on the way out there. We get out there and everybody wants to ride back to the hotel. Well, Sam Wagman, Dalton Cates, Marcus Grant, like there's all these people and they all need a ride. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to turn anybody down. They said, well, do you have room? And I said, hey, look, I'm driving the car. If you can find a spot in the car, that's your call.
There's room.
And it's up to you guys in the back. I'm not dictating any of that. So they just piled in. And I think we had 11 or 12 guys. I think we ended up counting. And it was pretty wild. It was like a clown car. And we pull up in front of the hotel and everybody's just piling out of the car. Ended up breaking my poker table, which nobody's fault but mine. I should have just stood it up on the side. But yeah, it was hilarious and great memory. I will never forget it.
It was in front of me.
Yeah.
I was cracking up.
I missed it, man. I feel like I miss everything. I just need to be just like you said. You there's no concept of time at the expo. I mean, you just can't do everything. I just feel like I miss out, and I only get to go for 2 days this year, Drew. So we're gonna have to.
Oh my gosh, what's wrong with you?
I know. It's Metallica. I already had the tickets.
Oh, that's right.
I'm already missing. I know, but I'm already missing one night, and I'm going to the second night. So, but yeah, we have got to get together. I definitely want to.
Well, if you're at the DoubleTree, I'm always in the bar.
I am. Last year, mistakes were made. And anyone that's listening, stay at the DoubleTree. I don't care what anybody tells you. That is just the place to be.
Yeah, it's one of those things where as soon as the expo comes out, like the site goes live, I get nervous about I got to get a room at the DoubleTree because it's the next everything explodes from the DoubleTree. So just if you're there, you're going to see people. You're going to be running into people. The plans are made there. The Thursday night dinner plans, all that stuff. Be at the DoubleTree if you can. Yes.
Yep, that's the place. That's the place.
Gina, are you going? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Gina's going. Gina
Host
is
the show.
going.
I apologize. I just shouting stuff out.
See, Gina Noble's going.
If you want to talk to someone, you can answer. Be our guest, please, Drew.
Okay.
So Drew, you do football. You do all the football content. Do you do any other sports besides football?
No. The short answer is no. I thought about it, and in fact, when I debuted my Patreon, my original goal was to get into legal issues and the other major sports. But I realized quickly that there just isn't enough of a market there. The legal stuff is cool, but really it just doesn't catch on in the other. There's not enough people playing other sports. So I'm not in anything else. I would create content for fantasy surfing, but once again,
I was just going to say, I thought there was something about surfing.
Yeah.
And didn't you say you got one of your children involved? They love it now?
Well, so JC's kid is involved, but my son is starting to get into it too, because we got this new TV that I don't have a smart TV in my basement, so I have to watch surfing on my computer. But the new TV we were actually able to download the surfing app and I can watch it upstairs. So now my family is not super excited about that, but now my son's getting into it. But yeah, I could do content for fantasy surfing, but I think that the 4 people who would listen to it probably wouldn't be worth my time. But yeah, it's just football for me.
You could just hop on a Zoom because you know all 4 people, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We could just do a group FaceTime is really all it would take. I love it, but until people get into it, a lot of people are like, well, I don't know how to do that. I'm like, did you know how to do fantasy the first time you did it?
I didn't even know you could bet on surfing. Okay.
Yeah.
Are you gonna start betting on curling? I mean, what?
No.
Drew.
No. Surfing is just, there's something about it, the lifestyle, the people, it's just an amazing sport and it's an amazing group of people. And so the combination just draws me like a moth to a flame. So it's something I'll never be without.
So the family's not into the surfing, but how about your wife and kids? I know your kids are young, but what about your wife with fantasy football? Is she involved at all?
She's not. so she's talked about getting into a league with like, I've got two brothers.
Battle of the Sexes. Battle of the Sexes. That's best
Well,
ball.
hey.
Get her in it.
Yeah, I told her, I said, just get in, just dip your toe in the water. You don't have to be me. Just go do a couple leagues and have some fun with it. And I think that her concern, and it's a valid one, is just that I'd be all over her. Like, well, did you get this guy out of your lineup? I mean, you know, this guy only played 45% snap share last week. Like, what are you doing? Why do you still have him on your team? Like, I think she's worried about that, rightfully so. But I told her, I said, I'll just leave you alone. Just do your thing. If you want me, I'll help you. I'll leave you alone. Like, I know you're smart. But I think it's also one of those things, too, where fantasy season is hard for her. And I don't think she really wants to add anything during that time to make her more busy, because I'm so busy that she picks up all the slack. And my wife is just amazing. I wouldn't be able to do this without her. I can't. May through August is a brutal couple of months for us as a family. And if I didn't have my wife doing it, so when she says, yeah, that's not really me, I'm like, cool. Like, whatever. It's up to you. So.
Are you bringing her to the expo? Sorry, Wendi, go ahead.
What's that?
Are you bringing her to the expo?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I don't think she has any desire, really. I mean, our kids are 9 and 7, and I just don't know. I think she would feel like she was kind of dragging me down, like following me everywhere and having to introduce her to everybody. So I don't know. We haven't discussed it, but who knows? Probably not, though.
So do you have like an off season? Really, you don't, do you?
Not really. I mean, right now would be it. So I know that, like, so my Patreon, I told everybody in the network, like, hey, I don't want you to be charged while I just don't feel like doing anything right now. I'm super honest about it. Like, so I just put everyone on a payment pause from January to May, and I'm going to start back up real hard in May. I used to do a couple of like, hey, what went wrong or what went right during the 23 season, and I would do a couple of those like now, but they don't get any traction. People are checked out, and it's a really diminishing returns kind of situation where why spend 6 to 8 hours ripping off a really nice podcast and editing and doing all this stuff, for you to get 500 downloads. I'm going to get 4 times that much in 3 months. So let's just take our time, and it makes me better during the year to just take this time now. So if I had to say, off season would be March and April. It's about all I get.
That's nice. Talking about law and being a lawyer, what, with your job and everything, did you ever had any issues with past clients that you can tell us about?
I have stories for days about past clients.
Yeah.
I can't talk about some things, but I can talk about plenty of things. When you say issues, let me just say this. People are not nice to something that they get for free. And I know that sounds weird, but it's like, I'm free, so they equate my value to what they pay for me as an attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing this 20 years. I think I'm pretty good at it. I'm not the best in the world, but I think I'm pretty good at it. And by the way, I know the court better than anybody. I know the issues better than most people because I have been doing them and I do such a high volume, but they don't think that. So I guess the issue I would say would be they don't treat you very well. And things have a tendency to go off the rails kind of sometimes. And I think people would be surprised at how much people come in and just disrespect you and talk rude to you and lie to you and just say rude things to you. And I have not handled it well as my career has gone on at times. Sometimes I'm able to blow it off. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't have to take this. And I kind of fire back at them. And so I've got stories about that, but you tell me, what do you want to hear? Funny stories, awful stories. Like, what do you want to hear? I got them all.
Like, if you want to share something maybe funny,
okay,
that happened with you, or maybe something that with someone special or someone well known, you want to share?
Okay, yeah. Well, honestly, I don't get any well known people really, because those people tend to come in and hire somebody high priced, and so I don't really get any of that. But I would say that the funniest stories you typically get are people with DUI cases, so
Yeah.
driving under the influence. So in Ohio, it's called OVI, operating a vehicle under the influence. But yeah, those are easily the funniest stories. I know that right when I got out of law school, 20 some years ago, one of the first cases I ever had, and I didn't realize how rare this was, but the guy was on the video. And are you familiar with the test where you have to like walk down the line, put
Yes.
one foot in front of the other down the straight line? It's called the walk and turn test. And
I
anyway,
don't know.
they ask him if he want to do it. We got this line, blah blah blah, and he says, "Oh yeah, man, I could moonwalk that line." And now when I saw it, I thought, well, that's pretty funny. But 20 years later, it's still in like the top 5 lines that I've ever heard on a DUI video. I did have a client recently on a DUI video they were asking her if she wanted to do some tests. And she says, well, I guess I could do the river dance for you. And I thought, well, that might sneak into the top 5 as well, because the moonwalk and the river dance, and people like, I feel like when I say these things, people are like, no way. And I'm like, I have the video evidence proof. Now, of course, this stuff is actually, I believe, public record, so I can talk about that stuff. And
Yeah,
I never, of course, want to identify a client or embarrass anybody, but
of course.
those are pretty top-notch comments there as far as funny stories. I've got a lot of weird and wacky stories as well.
That is
That's
so funny.
amazing. Oh my God.
I was a legal secretary for, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years, and it was some crazy stuff. I agree. So I know we've been trying to kind of like dig a little deep so we can get some of your secrets there. And here's maybe something that people don't know about you. You're into the Civil War.
Love it. I love it. People ask, well, you're a Civil War buff, and I don't know what a buff is, but I love it. I listen to podcasts about it. I visit battlefields. I travel around usually by myself and visit these battlefields because I don't really want to drag anybody with me. Most people don't like it the way I like it. So I hike. I like hiking out on the fields where the things happen. So there's a lot of places, like if you go to Gettysburg, I'm sure everyone's heard of Gettysburg,
Mhm.
the biggest battle of the war. And there's a nice driving tour. You can just drive around and you listen to something, and you have your maps and you just kind of look out the window. That's where that happened. You just drive. Well, I just love walking them because most people don't want to walk them. And my favorite battle ever is Antietam in Maryland. And that was also known as Sharpsburg to the south. And that battlefield is incredibly well preserved. It's big and there's a lot of walking trails and nobody knows about it. So when I'm walking out there, I almost never see anybody. And I don't know about y'all, but the older I get, that's a bonus. Like no people in my face. Like everybody just leave me the F alone. I'm just out here enjoying myself. And one of the things I found, like I went to Gettysburg and there'd be like little kids like climbing on the cannons, and I'm like I don't like that. I don't love that. Like 25,000 people died here. Like let's just. So I
Yeah.
didn't. So I get very old manish about that. Like get off my lawn, but I don't want that. So I go out to places that are a little more secluded, and I walk the trails, and I'm by myself, and absolutely love it.
Have you gone to the Alamo?
I have not. I've
You know what?
actually.
I just did that, Drew. I
Oh,
did
I'm
that
sure
in
it's awesome.
October.
I'm sure
It
it's awesome.
was amazing. Like I don't really, I'm not a history buff, and it's been a long time since I've been in high school, so I didn't remember a lot of that. So they have this museum, and they're actually expanding the museum. But the museum has all these artifacts, and the crazy thing is, most of those were donated by Phil Collins from Genesis.
Wow, I did not know
It's
that.
Yep, and it's like you can go because it tells who either donated it or if it's on loan or whatever. And Phil Collins, Phil Collins, Phil Collins. I kept seeing it, so I asked somebody there. I'm like, "What's the deal with Phil Collins in this place?" And they said, "You know what? We don't even have everything out. We're expanding the museum because he gave so much stuff."
Holy cow! Yeah, I
And then
didn't.
they
I
have like
don't
the
know.
little they have like the little, it's like a scale version of the Alamo, and they tell a story, and the narrator is Phil Collins. I mean,
Oh,
he's
okay.
really super. You've got to go. If you're any kind of history buff, you have to go.
For sure, for sure. And I have that's my thing with any vacation I go on. I look around where I'm going. Like, is there something I could visit around there? But I have never made it down there. I'm a pre 1900s history guy, so like my brother loves the Civil War too, but he's really into like World War II, and he thinks World War One and World War II. That's cool. I think that stuff's cool. It's neat, and I would always visit a battlefield if I had the chance. But I go out of my way for the pre 1900 stuff, the Civil War, Revolutionary War. That's up my alley.
It's very touristy at the Alamo.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's totally touristy, but it was a beautiful city though. I loved it there.
I need to do it.
You should.
In your opinion, Drew, what role do you think the media plays in shaping public perception of fantasy football? And how do you navigate that as a podcaster?
She's not messing around. We're
No.
saying,
No.
hey, you like the Civil War, right? And then she says, all right, now write me a master's thesis on. Yes. Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. It's interesting. This week we just had this discussion on Twitter about the guy who asked the question to Caleb Williams about what is our role in this whole process. And I think it's an interesting question because Matthew Berry, he's my idol on stuff like this because he really pushes hard for fantasy to be more mainstream. And I think that it's still weird that in 2024, the mainstream media still treats fantasy as though it's this small little niche thing that they don't need to worry about. And I just think that most people who act like that don't understand it. It's like having somebody writing a movie about a legal drama who's never been in a courtroom. It's just odd to me that the people that control this narrative aren't into fantasy football for the most part. And I think that's why we are where we are still. We're still stuck in neutral. And I love Matthew Berry for what he's doing because one of the big things was ESPN, and he said it in his column. He said ESPN didn't lowball me or anything. They were going to give me what I wanted. But I said I want more control of the football narrative versus fantasy football narrative. And they wouldn't give it to him. And NBC said, we're going to do that for you. So I love that about Matthew and what he's trying to do because he's really he knows that he's got the clout to keep pushing back. And last year after he got hired, the first time that they had a game and he was on the field and reporting about football and not just fantasy football. Now he did both, but I thought it was awesome. I said, wow, what an amazing envelope he continues to push and help us with. So I think the problem is there just aren't enough people with the clout of a Matthew Berry to take on these big companies that don't care about it. Because still on Fox, CBS, and it would be so easy for these companies to lean into it and just be posting fantasy stats on a little streamer down the right side. Like, here's how many fantasy points these guys in this game have. And they've done better about posting stats, but they just don't care about the fantasy still. And I understand it's not everyone, but it continues to grow, and it is a huge segment of the NFL population. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not watching the Bucks and Falcons at the beginning of December if it's not for fantasy football. And the NFL knows it. And yet these companies can't get behind it. It drives me nuts.
I agree. 100%. Yep. Yeah.
So when you're not watching football, what is this Masters of the Air that you speak of on Apple TV?
I know I've been talking about it a lot. Well,
you have. What is it?
So here's my thing that I have to just get out of the way right away. Ever since I've had kids, I don't do anything. So unless I'm playing a poker tournament, I don't do anything because kids keep you tied to home. Like, you just got to be home for them. So I watch a lot of television, and it really comes into I'll be working and I have to have a show on or something. So I watch the latest streaming shows that everybody's into. Well, I was a huge Band of Brothers fan. Are you familiar with the series about?
Yes.
Yeah. So Band of Brothers, I think, was some of the best television I've ever seen in my life. That's pretty old. But Masters of the Air came out, and I got a real Band of Brothers vibe from it when I started it. It is about bomber pilots in World War II, and it is like Band of Brothers for bomber pilots. I don't think it's quite as good as Band of Brothers. It's probably 80% of Band of Brothers, but it's just so well done, and showing the horrors that these guys went through, and these, they have to fly like dead straight, and there's just flak popping up everywhere, and it's just sitting there waiting to see if it's your turn or not. Is that flak going to pop on your plane and blow you up or kill you, or are you going to make it back? And the central point of the whole thing is like following these guys. They get to go home after 25 missions if they can make 25 missions. So following these guys through, it's just fascinating to me. I can't get enough of it. And I think it goes back to the history thing where I feel like I live such an easy life. It's just, life is so easy. I hop in my car with a heated seat and I drive to my job where, I don't get my hands dirty, and I just, I've got a great wife. I've got healthy kids. I've got, like, life is easy. And I think you need to take yourself out of that, and things like Masters of the Air pull me out of that and they force me to have that presence on a day-to-day basis about how life is so easy and so good.
Man, so you're saying I should probably watch it?
It's amazing. Yeah. It's great stuff.
Does your wife watch with you?
Not this one. So we do have shows that we stream together, and then I watch my own thing. So like her and I we love Only Murders in the Building is one of our favorite shows. Have you guys seen that?
I've never heard of that. No.
Oh my gosh. Martin Short and Steve Martin with Selena Gomez. And
oh wait, yeah, I think I have seen something about that. What platform is that on?
So Hulu, I think, is the easiest one to find it on.
Hulu? Okay.
But it's Martin Short and Steve Martin's type of humor, and the writing is just brilliant. It's just brilliant. And I think that they're a victim of their own success. Season 3 was really good, but nothing can top season 1. It was just an incredible show to start out. So got to do it. It's at the top of my list.
Is it over now, or
season 3 is over? But I think they're coming back for season 4. Okay. But they're self-contained seasons. Every season there's a murder and they have to solve it. Yeah. And then so they're self-contained. This last season I have Meryl Streep and Paul Rudd, and it's a big show.
Nice.
So yeah, we always have something we're watching together.
If you could change one part of fantasy football culture, what would it be?
Ooh, this is a tough one. So I think I don't want to be too politically correct here, like, and be boring, but I do think that there is a certain mentality out there about how we approach the game. And there are certain voices that we all listen to. And it sort of becomes like this sort of insidious thing in our brains where we all gravitate towards a certain type of opinion or a certain type of person. And often that person is a 40 or 50-year-old white guy. And for lack of a better way to say it, I mean, that is what the industry has been for a long time. And it is hard to break those molds. And I understand that. I get that. And I don't fault anyone, because I don't think anybody consciously does that. But I think the biggest challenge that we face and that we have is that we are never going to get it until we really become conscious of it. It just has to be a conscious choice. And then things get easier, and it's just kind of like the dam will break a little bit, but I still think we're struggling there a little bit.
Would you encourage women to be more active in the fantasy football field?
Yeah, absolutely. I have mixed feelings about this, because Just to be frank, I don't envy the things the hurdles you face and the challenges you face. I just think that sucks, and just straight up, there's no other way to say it. It just sucks, and I wouldn't tell anybody sign up for this. Like, if you don't need to, you don't need to. Like, don't sign up for that crap. But then I also think if that's what you want to do, then absolutely. I believe that there is so much untapped potential there that's what we should absolutely be focusing on. But I don't have a perfect answer, because sometimes I'll read a woman's post, and it's a great little tweet. It's something, and I think this happened to me a couple years ago. It was Kate's. I think it was Kate, maybe. I don't remember. It doesn't. Point is still instructive. I read her post. I'm like, that's a good point. She's got good stats. She's got a good point. And then like the first 5 replies were like, no, you're wrong. And I just replied and said, this is a great post. Like, you don't have to listen to all that crap. And I just feel like that would be just freaking exhausting, man. Like, just because, like, there's no reason to just be all over that post. And it was just because she's a woman. And it literally, like, I read the post and I'm like, they're not saying it, but that's 100% what it is. And I just felt exhausted for her. And so I think to myself, like, you don't have to sign up for that. Like, make life what you want. If that's what you want to do, awesome, go for it. Like, I'm here. But it exhausts me, and it doesn't happen to me. So it's it's hard for me to get my mind around a lot of days.
Yeah. Thank you for your honesty. I appreciate it, Drew.
Yeah, I mean, I would say most of the community is pretty positive, but and it's not just women that. I mean, people are so mean, Drew.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just are so mean sometimes, and you know, I've seen what can happen, and you did bring up something, and I want to comment on it about the fantasy football person that had asked the question to Caleb Williams. I was not even there when this happened. I was somewhere else because I listened to his advice, actually, about, I was new to that. I'd never done that before. So I'm over talking to the guys that have like nobody at their podium, and everybody was over at the Caleb Williams. So I wasn't over there. I didn't watch it. I don't want to know, because you know what? Dustin is a great guy. He is one of the most kindest people I've ever met. I can't imagine that he meant anything. It was either taken out of context, or, maybe just came out wrong, or I'm not really sure what happened, but, he's one, since you're speaking about women in the industry, I don't know if I consider myself in the industry, but guess what? I was at the combine, so I'm going to take my job seriously. He actually called me one day because I'd asked a question. He called me and advised me. He's like, here, make sure you have this with you, and this with you, and this. And he was spot on everything. So, and he's been very, very supportive of women in the community. So I did want to give Dustin a shout out, because he was a big help to me. And that day that all that stuff went down, and I don't even know, like I said, I felt miserable for him, because he was reading me the comments that people were putting on his Twitter. I mean, they were saying such means. I wanted to cry for him. He's tough though. He's just like, whatever, but I agree with that. It's like, oh my God, I don't want to do this because of stuff like that. But then again, if you're good at it and you enjoy it, don't let other people dictate what you're doing.
And I also believe that there's a difference between the industry and people and consumers who consume our content. So I think the industry itself has done a lot for accepting people, making sure that we're lifting each other up. There's rising tide lifts all boats. I really believe that our industry is moving in the right direction. I believe the content consumers are super toxic, and those are the people that create the problems for us. And I think we have a tendency to conflate those two and say, oh, well, those are the same. They're not the same at all. Our industry, I feel like, is pretty good at accepting, boosting the right people and the right things and themes and attitudes, whereas the consumers try to drag us down. But hey, we need them, right?
That's true. It's true. It's like a vicious cycle.
Yep, it really is.
What advice would you give someone that's starting their fantasy football journey on their own? And what would you think are some of the key elements for them to follow and be successful? What advice would you give them?
Yeah. Well, I would say the first thing is just put yourself out there. That is a extremely hard thing to do for some people. It's hard for me to do, but the job I got, the break I got with Football Guys was just because I created a Twitter account. I started talking about the Tyreek Hill abuse case, started talking about my auction stuff, and they gave me a shot because they saw it. And that was just pure luck. But at the same time, if I don't create the Twitter account, it never happens. You got to put yourself out there. So it may not work. And I'm not, one of the things that I think people get mixed up about is, oh, well, you told me if I did this, that this would this. Well, no, it may not work. It may not, but you have to put yourself out there or else it's 100% not going to work. You got to, first of all, put yourself out there. The second thing I'd say is when I forget who it was either, this is terrible. It's either Jen Piacenti or Liz Loza. I don't remember. Oh, that's terrible. But one of them told me, I think it might have been Jen. She told me the best thing that she ever did was to create a schedule for how she wanted to push her content. And that really clicked for me because it's one of those things where you think, oh, I'm just putting out content. I'm just going to do this and this and this and this. But unless you have the schedule, two things happen. Number one, people don't know when to count on your content. And number two, you just find it easier to make excuses to not do it. So, oh, I was going to put out this video tomorrow about X person. Well, I didn't get to it. And then pretty soon, 5 days later, you haven't done it yet. So you don't hold yourself to the same standard if you don't have that schedule. And when she said that, I said, wow, that is really absolutely true. Because I had started my show the previous summer, and I said, I'm going to drop a show every Thursday morning without fail. And I did it. And it was hard. And there were moments when it was 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and that thing has got to be uploaded at 7, and I'm still editing. But I wouldn't have been doing that if I hadn't promised everyone that I would have that show on Thursday morning. So I think, number one, you put yourself out there. Number two, make a content schedule that you think is going to draw people in, and then stick with it.
I
That's
agree.
awesome
100%.
advice.
Yeah.
You know,
That's a great
that's a lot of work, man. Just going to the combine thing, it's a lot of work. I was
So
like,
much.
you know, and I try to take it seriously, but you know, I'm not a stats person, like I said, you know, but that
You did
is
a
so
great
true
job.
that you have to have that stuff like written. Well, like with me, I had freaking note cards, Drew. Note cards.
Still
Okay,
waiting for
that's
my
all my
picture.
notes.
You got to do it.
I did. That was the only way, and I could stick it in my pocket and didn't have to worry about having anything and pull it out when I needed to. And I was old school, but it worked. It worked, you know.
You got to.
That's
And if you don't do stuff like that, you're not going to be successful. And it
That's
sounds
great.
silly, but I've got a legal notepad that sits next to me when I'm sitting on the couch. And something pops in my head, I write it down. Or
Yeah.
if I'm in my
Yeah.
car, I have a note in my phone and I write it down because these are all topics that I know that I'm going to hit from May to August. I'm going to forget them. And so
Yeah.
you have to develop habits like that. And that works for me. That may not work for everybody, but find something that works for you and that's repeatable. It's got to be repeatable. And if it's not, you're not going to repeat it. And then you're going to be inconsistent. People will notice. The people that are looking to hire you or that want you to create content for them, they notice when you're not consistent with what you say you're going to deliver.
100%
Awesome advice.
agree.
You heard it here, everyone, from Drew.
I agree. Agree. Drew, one last thing. What
Mhm.
would you say to your younger self?
I'd say get your ass moving before you're 44 and you're too old in the industry. No, I would say this. There's a lot of failure in everything that you do. And it is really easy to turn off your ambition when the failure keeps coming. And I have spent a lot of my life failing at things like trying to make my high school soccer team, trying to, I thought that in law school it was just going to be a breeze and I was just going to be top 10% of my class. And I failed at that. You know, I almost failed the bar the first time. I passed the first time, but barely. And I've spent a lot of life failing at things, and it creates a certain barrier in your brain. It just does, because you're human and that you can't help that. So understand that there's just a ton of failure, and you can't allow that to turn off your ambitions and your desires and your love for what you want to do. It's going to be difficult. There's no way around it. But I think that the main thing for me was always just, as soon as I realized that that's what was happening in my brain, then it got easier. Life got easier, because I said, "Oh, this is what I'm doing to myself. I'm torpedoing myself before I ever get started." And so I think that's the biggest thing that I would tell my younger self is, just, you're going to fail all the time. Just don't worry about it. Just move on and keep going. Because, and I know that sounds so trite and cliche. Like, I hate even saying that, because it's like, oh, I can just keep going. But it creates a nonstop feeling in yourself of inadequacy and inability to do it when you can. It's a lot of times things are outside your control. A lot of these things that I failed at weren't because I didn't do a good job or didn't do what I was supposed to do. It's just because there's a lot of other good people or circumstance or whatever. And you just have to turn that part of your brain off and keep moving.
Thank you so much, Drew. That's awesome
You know,
advice.
I know we're getting close to our time that we have to let you go, Drew, but I do want to know, is there an obsession with Puka Nakua? What is the deal? What
Heck yes. Well,
so, like, did you call this last year? Is this is your guy, or what?
No.
What is happening?
No, I didn't. So this is the funniest thing ever, because it happened. It's all this weird confluence of events, because I didn't call Puka at all. People were telling me about him, and I'm one of these guys who, I'm not a big dynasty guy. I'm a redraft guy. So in redraft, I'm like, I'm not dealing with Puka Nakua in redraft. Like, we're not doing that. So 100,000% I did not see that. And then what ended up happening is, in my 2 home leagues, which are still my favorite leagues in the world, I ended up getting him in both leagues. I got him. My 1 home league is an open wire, so you can add players like during the games. So it's whoever runs to the computer and picks a guy up. So I added Puka and I added Kyron Williams that first week, and I won a title. And then I bid $88 for Puka in my other league, won that title. So what ended up happening was, I'm at Disney World with my family in early December, and I am trying to win the regular season title in my 1 home league. It's a decent amount of money, but also the triple crown of winning your division, winning the regular season, and then winning the title is really hard to pull off. And I was close to doing it, but I needed a big week. So I'm at Disney World, and Puka's just going off. And I'm going on all these rides with my kids and my wife, but I also have the Sunday ticket on my phone. So we're in line, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm not watching the game. And I'm watching Trey McBride and Puka Nakua just go off. And at one point we get on a ride and we get off, and Puka went from like 6 points to like 19. I was like, what in the hell just happened? I see that he had a 70-yard touchdown. So I have this inextricably linked amazing day where I was at Disney World at the same time my fantasy team went off for 200 points and won me a points title. So I can't separate those two. Those are emotionally linked. And then I went on to win the title because of him. So I ordered a Puka jersey, and he also happens to be a guy with like an aloha spirit. You know, he's like a Hawaiian.
This is true.
So he's not from Hawaii, but I looked into this, but he's just got this Hawaiian spirit. I think he's Samoan maybe, but he's always throwing the shakas, and anybody who's going to throw a shaka all day and all night is going to be somebody I like in the first place. And then you pile on top of it the fantasy success and, you know, that day at Disney World, that perfect storm of stuff happening. It all just led to this like emotional attachment. And all my buddies are like, we're going to bid you up for to Puka. Puka, I know you're listening right now. Come on the show, buddy. Come on the show, buddy. I DM'd him. I'm not even joking. I DM'd him.
Did he see it?
DMs. I don't know. He's so popular right now. Like, people just love him because of his spirit and his like.
He does seem like a great kid.
Yeah, really doesn't he? And he's just a happy dude, and he's just so nice. He was meeting with all these people, you know, Mauricio and all these guys, and I was like, God damn it! I'm at this. They're at the Super Bowl meeting with Puka, and I'm not there. But yeah, I mean, I just think he's just a cool dude. And so my buddies are like, in my auctions, they're like, we're going to bid you up for Puka this fall. And I was like, I don't care. I'm going to keep bidding. Like, you can bid me up. There's one moment where I'm not going to be a killer in the auction room, and I'm going to keep bidding for Puka. You can bid me up if you want.
He has great hair too. He's
Yes.
in the top 5 of the hair. I mean, he's up there.
He's got everything. He's got it all. He's got it all.
That's amazing story, Drew.
Yeah.
Disney magic.
It was magical. I say it over and over.
Your wife see you looking at your phone?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, because what's funny is we've never been on a legit vacation during football season except for her 40th birthday, and we weren't there for a Sunday for her 40th birthday. We were home, so this is the first time I've been on a vacation on a Sunday. And I told her, I said, you just got to be patient. And I wasn't buried in my phone all day. Like, I was having fun, but I had it on, and my son loves watching it too. And we're waiting in a 45-minute line. Like, what are we doing? So I just had the phone out. She was cool. She was fine with it. And especially because it was going well. If it had been going poorly, maybe that would have been bad, but she was enjoying it right with me.
She'd have been throwing your phone off on the roller coaster.
Right. Well, I try to control it. I really do. I don't always do well. But again, another reason why my wife is a saint.
I took the advice of Mr. Jeff Ratcliffe, and at the beginning of last season, and I'm like, because I got so tired of it, Drew, I would look on my phone and I'm going back and forth, and I'm trying to watch Red Zone, 7 hours of uninterrupted football. I cannot be looking at my phone. And you have so many teams that, you're playing against this player, but you have this player. It's not fun. You know what? I put my phone down and just watch the TV all day. And I look at the end of the day, and if I won some, I know I'm not going to win them all, so, but I like that.
You absolutely nailed it, because I only keep the live scoring up on my main home league. That's the only one I look at. I'm only in like 9 or 10 leagues, but I know that's small for the industry, but those other leagues, I just don't check them. There's no point. Most weeks, if you're in 9 leagues, you're going to go 5-4 or 4-5 or 3-6 or 6-3. Like, most weeks are going to be right there. So you're going to lose. Like, why ruin your time? Just be like, oh yeah, that's my guy. I started him and he scored. Like, just enjoy that. And then you'll see later on whether or not you were playing the 3 guys that had 45 points that week. You that can wait. I can wait to get kicked in the junk by Christian McCaffrey for a couple hours. So like, that don't need to know that now.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, Drew, this has just been a great time. I'm thank you so much for coming on the show. And, I just in case people don't know where to find you, can you let them know?
Thank you. Yes. Drew Davenport FF on Twitter. And the best place to find me is the Auction Brief podcast during the summer. And then I also write for Football Guys. My written content goes to Football Guys. The podcast is sponsored by Fighting Chance Fantasy, but you can find that anywhere you find podcasts. And that's, again, called the Auction Brief podcast. Also, I do have a Patreon, and I don't push it real hard right now because I'm not doing anything until May for the Patreon. But it's only $3 a month. I'm considering going to $4 a month. I know that's crazy inflation, right? But it's all auction talk, and the way to get me, Twitter is so hard. I get in the middle of July, and my DMs I can't keep up. So I said I'm not doing it anymore. If you want to talk to me specifically about your auction strategy or your auction teams, you're gonna have to get in the Patreon. So that's called the Fantasy Football Lawyer.
Awesome. All right. Great. So we do want to do a quick reminder. We're trying to get it out there that we are changing our night that we're going to be on. We're going in April. Starting in April, we will be on Wednesday nights at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central. So just want to remind everyone of that. And thank everybody for coming tonight. Drew, we had a lot of viewers, and it's because of you.
Ooh.
Yes.
It's great. It was great. I know.
No, that's amazing. I love it. Well, I have a great time talking to you guys. So if you ever need me again, let me know. I've enjoyed myself immensely.
Awesome. We're going to take you up on that. So
yes,
I'm in. I'm in.
Thank you to the Sports Affiliation. We love you guys. You let us come on this show every week and get to know our guests and get to hang out with our people in the chat over there. So thank you for that. Tune in next week to the Game Changers. You guys aren't going to believe this. Guess who our guest is next week? He had a big announcement on Twitter today.
Scott Fish.
Yes! Bingo! Ding, 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 ding.
Now, how to make a man feel small is bring Scott Fish on after me.
No, it would have been the other way.
I'm
Now
messing
we're
with
going
you.
to have Drew.
Oh, yeah, we got Drew Davenport. But next week, we've got a real guest. His name is Scott Fish. And he actually raises money
You are a real
for
guest.
children. Drew just yells at his clients every day. Scott raises money for poor children.
He does.
We,
you know what though? We're the ones that help with that. So we're just one big happy family, Drew.
Drew gets drunk and talks about how much he hates his job. Scott raises money for poor kids. I mean, which one do you want? No, I'm just kidding.
Everybody. We want everyone. We love everyone equally. Okay, except Bob Harris. Okay,
yeah,
Bob Harris is my bestie, so it's even in the thing there. So, we will see everyone next week. Thank you, JC. Thank you for everything. We know that you were so happy to have Drew on. Yep, was that the little one of those things?
Yeah, bro.
All right, everybody. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next week. Have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.